Hi everybody, Chris Titley here and welcome to Scoreboard.
This episode is powered by SwiftX, Australia's top-rated crypto exchange and proudly homegrown, just like many of the athletes and business leaders we feature on Scoreboard.
Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and on today's episode of Scoreboard, the podcast, I'm joined by Lee Holdsworth. Lee, great to catch up, mate. Been a long time.
It's been a long time, yeah. I don't know it must be, how long have we been out of school?
20-something
years or something, 25 years, something like that. So, yeah, it's been about that long.
That's it, mate. That's a lot's gone on since then. But, mate, we are in 2025. We're at the tail end of 2025, sitting here in November. Mate, how would you describe your 2025?
Oh, geez, my 2025 has been... It's been good. Every year is challenging, and changing careers only a few years back, I'm still feeling the challenges of that, and still not quite in my natural environment, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying being at CBRE. I'm enjoying that I still get to go racing a couple of times a year for the Enduros, and my family are good. I've got a couple of kids. I've got a 13-year-old girl and a 9-year-old boy, and my wife, I've been with her for over 20 years. So things are going well.
Mate, CBRE, you want to talk about your role there, the interest, where that came from, post your sporting career?
Yeah. Oh, well, it's funny. I think in any sport you've got to have the blinkers on and be fully focused on what you're doing, or else you get distracted and you don't put in 100% into what you're doing. So in some ways it's frustrating that I didn't look at another career earlier, but in other ways I think that's the reason why I was able to sustain such a long career in motorsport. Because I was always 100% focused on being successful in that sport and putting everything into it, sacrificing a lot. But it was 2020 when we had a couple of years of COVID there, obviously in 19 and 20, and sponsorship was tough, and my 3-year contract got cut short at the end of 2020. I had a 12-month contract left, and that was the point. That was due to sponsorship. The sponsor pulled out, and that meant me sitting on the sidelines for a year with nothing to do and reassessing my whole life and what I had ahead of me, and I guess that was the point where I really got to kick up the arse and had to really think about how I can support my family moving forward. And I did a real estate course. I've got a friend at CBRE, and he suggested that I go and do a commercial real estate course, which I did throughout 2021. And at the same time, I won the Bathurst 1000 in October that year as well. So I got asked back full time for racing the following year, which I didn't expect. But I'd also accepted a full-time job with CBRE. So I was in a bit of a predicament there. CBRE were brilliant to me. They said that they don't want to stand in the way of that. So they were happy for me to go part-time CBRE, full-time racing, as long as I came back full-time CBRE the following year and part-time racing. So it was a big transition year. It was great to dip my toe in the water as a part-time employee for CBRE, but also to finish my career the way I wanted to, which was to be able to go out on my own terms after, I think it's like 17 seasons in Supercar full-time. So it was the way I wanted to finish it, and really had no ambitions prior to that to get into property. I wanted to use what I'd done in motorsport to benefit my next career, which I was kind of able to do joining CBRE. I have great connections in the private sector with some of the racing fraternity. You're either getting paid to drive, or you're paying a lot of money to drive in other categories. So there's a lot of wealthy privates in the lower ranks. And so I sort of used that to my advantage in the career I'm in now. and they're big investors, and now I'm selling property to those guys.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. There's so much to unpack there. I'm just going to go back to that moment in 2020, then the moment in 2021 with Bathurst, and now where you are here in 2025. Do you look back at that 2020 moment and remember the pain and the angst and the anxiety, and now sort of look back and go, this is what I've achieved and I'm very proud?
It was a really frustrating time, and a real eye-opening moment for me was, you just think that you can go, well, I never knew I could think that I could go forever. And, I was approaching 40, and I thought, I've done pretty well to get to stay in the sport this long, but there were still so many things I wanted to achieve. So I still had that hunger to keep going, and still felt like I was driving at my very best. And so, yeah, that moment was pretty crushing for me to be sitting on the sidelines, and then felt like an idiot because I didn't have something on the side to move into, another business venture that I'd been working on or anything like that. So, it was a big turning point in my life, and to be honest, it was in hindsight, I think it was a good thing, because it allowed me to reflect on my future, but also on what I'd achieved in the sport. Funnily enough, my biggest achievement was yet to come, which was that year. And I guess all my effort went into that one race, because usually they do 2 races for the endurance season for Supercar. That year, because of COVID, we only had the one race. So I had one race to focus on that year. I was doing some other racing, but I put everything into that, and I think in some ways that probably gave me the drive and the effort to get the result that we did.
Yeah, I was going to say, just on that moment, I'm not going to ask you how you felt when you won, but more along the lines of like what was driving you, what was driving you to get to that race, to go, there's a little bit of inner mongrel here, a little bit of I suppose revenge almost. Yeah. Yeah,
it was almost like I still had something to prove, and getting kicked out was the last thing that I wanted to do, and it was not the way I wanted to finish my career. I still felt that I could win races and win Bathurst and stuff like that. So to come back, I knew. Well, I was fortunate enough to get a choice between several of the top teams to link up with for Bathurst. So I chose to go with Walkinshaw Andretti United with Chaz Mostert. Great team, great driver. So I knew that I had the best chance ever, and so I was excited all year. I felt this was my year to really, to win and conquer the mountain, and yeah, it all just came together for us. So, but yeah, I think knowing that you've got the best opportunity ahead of you to do that after 18 attempts of trying to win that race, the biggest race in Australian motorsport, one of the biggest races in the world, was that this opportunity is in front of me, and I'm going to take it with both hands, and but also to prove to everyone that I can still do this, and I'm still at my peak.
Mate, that's excellent. I'm curious to know around the individual aspect of motorsport, plus, I talk this quite often with athletes around the team aspect as well, and how you fit in within the team and the role within the team, because it is a big team as well. Do you want to talk about how you manage that with skill sets individually, but then also managing other people's emotions and I suppose the ups and downs with that?
I think as a race driver, the team really look to you. You've got mechanics, you've got the marketing groups, and you've got engineers, and there's for a 2-car team, you've got like 30 workers in the workshop, and they are doing it because they're passionate about it, not because they get paid well. They do it because they love motorsport. They love who they're working for. On your car, you've got 3 mechanics, you've got 2 engineers, you've got you've got a team manager above you, you've got all your sponsors, and so there's a lot of pressure on you as a driver, but you also need to set the morale around the team and really make those workers want to put in those extra hours for you. And because they've all got a job to do, but it's when they do those extra 1%ers where it makes all the difference, because the cars are so similar, the drivers are all talented, and it's those extra 1%ers that really makes a difference. So to build that team around you, and also you're trying to find the right people in the sport to surround yourself with in a team. Sometimes you're recruiting people as a driver from other teams to get across, because you know that they could make all the difference. That's a part of the sport that people don't really see and get an appreciation for. I think most look at it and they say, well, you're just driving the car. That's your only job. But we realise that as a race driver, that your name, as much as the team won the race or the team lost the race, ultimately your name is what appears on the timesheet, and you wear that result more so than anyone. So it's in your best interest to get the best people around you and make them work for you, and get the right culture going, and make everyone want to win and do it for you.
People talk about the high performance mindset and what it takes to be at the best you and the best at your level. Can you share some of the insights or tips to the listeners out there that you did maybe on a daily basis, or something that was in your brain the whole time about trying to get the best out of you? Everyone's got a different approach, and everyone gets the best out of themselves in different ways. And the way that I got the best out of myself is knowing that I felt prepared physically. So a lot of training. I was always, I'm still very fit. I still, I like to keep a close relationship with everyone in the team, and have an interest in what they're doing, and know all their names and know their families' names and all that sort of stuff. It goes a long way, and but also I think mainly in the lead up to a race, I was always one that if I overthought it, it was probably a negative thing towards my result. The less I thought about it, the more, the better my result would be, and the better my performance would be leading into the race. So I just tried to keep. It actually took me a long time to realise that, to be honest, because as a youngster, when you first get involved in the sport, you're doing everything you can to get up to speed. Looking at data, going through everything with your engineer every single day on how you can improve the car, how you can improve yourself. Looking at your teammate's data to see where he was, half a tenth of a second quicker through a corner than you, or and all those little things add up. But if you start trying to drive like someone else, it becomes less natural, which then you don't get the best out of yourself. You have to really rely on your own talent and skills to be able to get the best performance out of yourself. I think any time you start to try to emulate someone else is when you go backwards. And sometimes when you're in a race team, they tell you that you need to drive like the other driver, and as soon as they do that, you go backwards. Yeah, right. That's very interesting and good insights. I'm curious to know your relationship with adrenaline and fear and nerves, and how you handled those things when it came to big races. There's a lot of pressure and eyes and speed, pace, etc. How did you cope with it all?
I think as in my earlier days in racing, when I first started racing full time, it was just so exciting, and you were just so stoked to be there, and it went from being your hobby to being your profession, and that is the best time of your career, because you don't have any other commitments. At that stage you don't own a house, you don't have kids, you don't have a wife. So really, the whole focus is on what you're doing, and you're completely selfish about the way you go about your business, and that's that's brilliant as a young young or a young sportsman. When you get to the point of having to support a family, and you've got your wife, you need to balance your life a bit more, spending time with them, giving back to the family, and having time for everything. That's when the pressure really starts to build, and I think the anxiety starts to creep in and all that stuff, because if you have a bad result, all of a sudden you think, my career's ending. You get that, or it might be, it's 2 or 3 bad results in a row and you're up for contract this year. It's really stressful because it is such a cutthroat industry, as any sport is. If you're not performing, or if you have a lapse in your results, you can get kicked out on your ass pretty quickly. So to handle that side of it, it's very difficult. And I just found that trying to bring myself back into that, not that selfish mindset, but that mindset where you got to look back to why you did it in the first place, and it was because you enjoyed it, and just trying to bring some enjoyment back into it. And it probably loops back to what I was saying before about how, I try to think as little as possible. I get my best results when I think as little as possible about the upcoming race or qualifying, and how I'm going to get the best out of myself. You've just got to trust yourself, and trying to reset, it's a very difficult thing to do, and trying to tell yourself, hey, results are going shit, but they'll look after themselves if you just relax.
Yeah, mate. It's easier said than done, but obviously with experience and the pressure and the weight, etc., that you talked about with family, etc., it's a bit hard to relax. But if you go back to that connection of enjoyment and fun, that's some really good insights, mate. The transition sort of out of racing into business per se, there's so many lessons that you've learned as a professional athlete. What's some that stand out? I mean, resilience is one that I've taken already by talking to you, but other things that you've learned that now you can take into the workforce that may be a little bit missing, that you can add a bit more value than others that haven't had your career.
I guess, it's the same sort of thing. You got to try and enjoy your career. Whilst you're, when I went into this, the property industry, I'm surrounded by guys that have got more experience than me, and they're in their 20s. And that's a really difficult thing, but you don't realise how much life experience, how far that goes, and how far those values go from, just everything you've learnt in your experiences up to date, especially in sport with the challenges that are presented every day. And then taking that into business and going, hey, if I can do that in sport and in such a cutthroat industry, I can do this anywhere. And I guess one of the main things that I learnt through racing is the relationships are so important, and being a people person and being honest as well with people, it goes a long way. So, rather than telling someone that they're getting a great buy in property when they're not, you'd rather say to them, look, give them the truth about the property and the potential of the property, rather than saying, bullshitting to them, and then creating a relationship that will last, decades from there, where that investor then trusts your opinion and takes it through to having several transactions through yourself. So I think the relationships are a big thing to me, and then also just trying to enjoy life still, and the career that you're in will get the best out of you.
Lee, I'm curious on that relationship building through the peak of your career. A lot of people may wanted a piece of you for your driving and your success, but then trying to actually show them who you really are might be a little bit tricky because you didn't have much time, or they just get little snippets of you. How did you go about behind the scenes, I suppose, talking to sponsors and giving people time and building your personality and trust level through who you are to now show what you're really like as a human?
I like to think that I was the same with the punters as I am with my friends and whoever else. I've always tried to, I've always been appreciative of what I've been given, the opportunities I've been given, and also, realise that these people, I was one of those people once, but, lining up for autographs and for Peter Brock and Dick Johnson and those guys, and I know how much it meant to me when they gave you time to have a little chat and just say good day and ask how you are and, who you're barracking for, all that sort of stuff goes so far. But obviously you don't have the time to do that for everyone, but you do it as much as you can. And some guys are better at it than me, and some guys are not as good as I am at it. But again, you can put so much effort into that, and it can be quite draining when you're speaking to people all day. But it kind of didn't affect me. I know there's drivers that it really takes it out of them, putting the effort into speaking to people, because it is, it definitely is. It can be quite exhausting because you're having the same conversation over and over and over. And what happened to the car, and why did you put it in the fence, or how did you win? It's it's quite draining, but I just tried to enjoy it and took it as an opportunity to build the fan base I guess let the punters know that we're just normal human beings that have been given a great opportunity.
Mate, that's excellent. We did talk of sponsors before and the importance of sponsors at Scoreboard here. We've got a couple of sponsors, and our main sponsor is SwiftX, that has over 1.2 million users in Australia and New Zealand, Australia's most trusted cryptocurrency platform. As part of their sponsorship with Scoreboard, we run a little segment called the Bucket List segment, which is a sporting event that you'd love to attend live as part of their new campaign, Where Can Crypto Take You? Lee, I'm curious to know, if you had unlimited funds and unlimited time, which sporting event would you go to?
I want to see if SwiftX can get me to the Super Bowl one day.
There you go. Big shout out to them. We'll see if we can make it happen, Lee. The Super Bowl.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty amazing one to attend. I reckon if I didn't say that one, well, if I hadn't been to the Indy 500, I would have said Indy 500. But I got to go there for the 100th running in 2016, so that was pretty amazing.
And Lee, our second sponsor on Scoreboard is Pocketsmith, and they power a little segment called the Do You Budget segment. Pocketsmith is the personal finance app for the household CFO, the one keeping the budget in check, paying the bills, and kicking goals over 80,000 Aussies. Use Pocketsmith to track their spending, see their net worth, and plan ahead. Lee, I'm curious, do you budget?
I am terrible at budgeting. I'm really, really bad. I just try and spend as little as possible.
That's pretty good. I like that.
I'm not great at doing that either. The answer is no. I need to, but I'm a shocker with it.
Yeah, Segway, Pocketsmith. There you go. Check them out. I use them, and it's great on the desktop. You can categorise all your expenses and see how many coffees you drink and how many subscriptions you have, etc. But, mate, all good. Now, we also ask our guests on Scoreboard about their scoreboard moment, and that is a moment in their life which is very visual. It's almost like a Kodak moment or a sliding doors moment where it's replayed in your brain, and like from that moment, things changed. I'm curious to know what your scoreboard moment is, Lee.
I don't know whether it changed my life, but I still remember the crash where Ayrton Senna passed away in Formula One in 1994, I think it was, at Imola. I was sitting there in my house at Milton in Brisbane, and it must have been an early morning. It was always got up before school and turned on the Formula One. And I think it was live at the time, and I saw it happen. And the guy, Ayrton Senna was my absolute hero. And when I saw it happen, and then he was announced dead in the chopper, 5-10 minutes later. That was a pretty bit of a standout moment for me to realise that motorsport is actually pretty dangerous.
Mate, a lot to take in there. You would have been, I don't know, how old would you have been then?
1990. I reckon I would have been around 12, 13 years old, somewhere around there.
It's a lot to process for someone that idolises someone, and knowing my 12-year-old, the 13-year-old now, like the posters on the wall, etc.
Yeah, no, it was a lot to process, and I think that's why it sticks with me so much to this day, is that it had such an impact at that age, especially at that. I was racing go-karts, so he was my inspiration, and to see his life end in the sport that I love so much was a bit of a wow moment.
Yeah, well, speaking of wow moment, we're going to go on a high moment now. Is your all-time favourite sporting moment? And I preface this that it doesn't include yourself, because there has been some highlights in your own life, but something that you could watch 1,000 times over.
That's a really difficult one. I reckon that probably, it was this is not. Are we talking sporting moment here?
We're talking sporting moment, yeah. Yep. And you can go down a different path if you want to. I'll give you an exception today if you don't want to do it.
I was going to go down the music path.
Go for it. Why not? Let's do it. It's always improvising and getting first on scoreboard.
One of the coolest things that ever happened to me was, you would know that some of the Powderfinger crew went to BGS, and John Collins, the bass player, who he still has a fair bit to do with the school, but he kept coming around. I didn't realise who he was, to all these race meetings and yelling out "Wong Wong," calling me Wong Wong, and I soon realised that was because of our war cry, and once he came over and said g'day, and he had some of the other, I don't know whether Bernard Fanning was there, but some of the other boys from the band were there, and also Gordon Tallis and a few others. Anyway, he walked away, and after saying g'day, and some of the boys in the team, they said, "Do you realise, how do you know those guys? Do you realise who that was?" And I said, "Yeah, that was like Gordon Tallis and a few others, his mates." And they said, "No, that was Gordon Tallis and the guys from Powderfinger." I'm like, oh my God, those guys were like my heroes in school. Anyway, long story short, got to know him pretty well, and he invited my brother Brett, who and my wife Alana, to their reunion comeback tour, just one of the events down here in Melbourne. So we were in backstage with them and got to meet the whole crew, and sat in the most amazing spot. And so I reckon, I don't know, I didn't have much time to think about that answer, but that's a bit of a standout that I could do again.
That is a standout. That's an incredible standout. And it's great that you didn't recognise them, because it's that's natural, and people and who you are. It's not fanboying, etc. But what a moment that is. Anyway, favourite all-time sporting moment has turned into music moment. I love it. One final question. You're a parent now, and kids playing sport, and they have their idols and posters, and they maybe want to be professional athletes down the track. What's some advice that you give to A, maybe your children, but B, also others out there about the life of a professional sports person?
One thing that I was always a bit bitter with about motorsport is how many elements and variables there are to getting a result. It's never just the driver at all, like very far from it. You have to be a good driver, have a good car, have a good team, have a bit of luck. My advice, and that's one of the reasons why I'd probably steer my kids away from motorsport, because I want them to be able to see rewards from hard work and talent, and not have to rely on so many variables. I think that one of the things that I've learnt in my life is that the harder you work, and the more you obviously got to enjoy that line of work as well. But if you're willing to put in the work, you can see that sometimes that is better than talent. Some people rely on talent and hard work you can't beat, but hard work alone can beat talent. I think that's one thing that I would give as my best piece of advice to my kids is just if you want something enough and you're willing to work hard enough, you will be able to achieve it.
Lee Holdsworth, on that note, thank you so much for giving your insights into your life on Scoreboard, the podcast. A great way to finish, by the way, and some really good advice in terms of work ethic, and the rewards will come eventually. I really do appreciate it. Looking forward to catching up. Great to catch up in person, and looking forward to supporting where I can.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. It was awesome.